Add controls to Excel using the Mandatory Fields and Force Default Values feature in the Simplified Loader template. The force default values defined by the administrator are different from the default values entered by the user in the data sheet. The field value defined as force default by the administrator takes precedence over the values entered by the user in the data sheet. The Mandatory Fields feature allows the administrator to define required fields. Both Mandatory Fields and Force Default features are set up for each operation. This means that if the same default value applies to two operations, then define two instances of the Force Default column, one for each operation. Navigate to the Admin panel in the Excel template to set up Mandatory Fields or Force Default values. In the Admin panel, refer to the Controls section. For this demo, I will define a few mandatory fields for the Create Invoice operation. Select the Mandatory Fields feature and the operation Create Invoice. The config instructions are displayed in the field. Similarly, for Force Default values, select the Force Default feature and the operation Create Invoice. The setup instructions are displayed in the field. For better readability, copy and paste the instructions into a notepad. So far in the demo, we looked at how to view instructions to set up a mandatory field or Force Default value. In the next step of the demo, I will configure these features. Navigate to the About sheet to set up mandatory fields and Force Default values. Insert additional columns in the About sheet. After column P, I will insert two columns. I will use one column to define mandatory fields and the other for default value. Enter the column name in column Q as mandatory fields, Create Invoice. In column R, enter Force Default, Create Invoice as a column name. To define a mandatory field, enter Y in the About sheet against the fields you wish to make mandatory. To set the Force Default value, enter the value in the cell. In this example, the default value entered for the business unit field is US1 business unit. This slide gives a quick summary of mandatory fields and Force Default values used for the demo. In the next part of the demo, I will enter data in the data sheet and perform the Create Invoice operation. For this demo, I entered the details of 3 invoices. 2 out of these 3 invoices have incorrect data input. For invoice Controls 02, the header invoice currency is missing. Please note, in the About sheet, I have marked the invoice currency field as mandatory. Therefore, I expect to see an error message when uploading this invoice. For invoice Controls 03, the value for the header business unit is incorrect in the data sheet. When I upload this invoice, based on the Force Default setup in the About sheet, I expect the business unit field value to be overwritten with the Force Default value. I will now upload all 3 invoices. Notice that the second invoice failed. The error message on Controls 02 invoice is related to the mandatory field for the operation Create Invoice. Although invoice Controls 03 had an incorrect value for the business unit, the invoice still loaded successfully. This was because of the Force Default field values. Please note that the controls defined by the mandatory fields and Force Default values are validated before sending details to Oracle Fusion for processing. Defining the mandatory fields and Force Default columns is not mandatory. You can utilize these features for the same field based on the requirement. This slide highlights the template behavior for the combination of these features. The first column represents whether data is entered in the data sheet. The next 2 columns are the setup of the mandatory fields and Force Default values. The last column is expected behavior. I will go through the third row of the slide. If the user enters the value of a field in the data sheet, and the mandatory flag is set to Y in the About sheet with a Force Default value. In such a scenario, The simplified loader will override the value entered by the user in the data sheet with the value defined by the administrator in the force default setup.